Okay, so let's take the moment here to create a new account here on the Extension Grazing website. So to do so, you would just click on Create New Account. It's going to ask you to enter in your account information like you would find on almost any website around the world. Agreement statement here that acknowledges that your data may be used for research purposes. However, your personal information would be stripped from that if it were to be used in such a way. So here's our test farm 2. After you set up your new account, this is where it's going to ask you to set up any new paddock data that you have for your farm. So your farm name is Test Farm 2. That's located here. You're going to have to pick out a measurement date. And would you like your data to be public or private? If you select private, only you and the system administrators will be able to look and see your data. If you're willing to make your data public so that everyone can see it, you can click that button there, and then others can benefit from your information as well. So once we have filled in this information, again with our farm name, date, and then whether we like to have our data public or private, we can just hit submit here. And that's going to take us to this page that allows us to set up our farm. This is simply the ID of the paddock or field that you're using, so I'll just make up some numbers here. So the first one I'm going to call paddock A. I'm going to hit the tab button, and for this first time I'm going to enter in how many pounds of dry matter per acre that I have for paddock A this week, 1,500 pounds. The type of species that it's in that pasture, they come with a default of cool season grasses because that's what we use most of in the Midwest, but there are other choices to use warm season grasses, and then the number of acres that that pasture or paddock represents, and we'll say in this case it's 10 acres. Okay, we just use our tab key then to go to the next pasture or paddock. I'll just make up a couple here to fill in things. There's this button on the side called Validate the Table. This is always good to hit this button to be sure that the data that you have before you submit it has valid numbers in it. That is, you don't have a character, for instance, in the dry matter per acre column that is like a non-number, like C instead of 2,500 or something. So you hit Validate Table. It's going to the website should send you a message that says your data looks valid and ready to be submitted. If you get that, yeah, you can hit close there, and you're ready to go. There are some things here that you set up the first time. The website does remember your farm with your login ID each time thereafter. You can select the livestock class that you have. For the, in this case, I'm going to select dairy milking for this example. So these are milking cows. Optimum maximum cover, this again is in pounds per acre. The optimum maximum cover is the maximum amount of forage that you say is ideal for grazing in your paddock. Numbers over this are going to be coded, as you'll see in the grazing wedge, as red or having or over mature relative to what you're looking for. The optimum minimum cover sets the base level or the residual level of forage that you want to have for your grazing wedge. In this case, it's set to 1,100 pounds per acre. Okay. There are some other data that it asks you for, but that are optional, as well as any special notes that you wish to make for yourself or others to see, or other things that you wish to do. Once you have this information filled, again, validate your table before you hit submit. Save you a little time later. You can just hit submit, and it's going to build a grazing wedge for you. Okay, and we only built 3 paddocks for this test farm 2. You see that the first column here is the paddock that has the most amount of forage. In this case, I think I put in 5,000 pounds per acre, which is well above what I said my maximum was. My maximum was ideally was 2,750, and 5,000 is obviously past that. And you'll notice in the legend for this chart that to mature is this red bar. It's over 2,750, and it's the ones listed first. Paddock B that we set up was more nearly what we said was ideal. It's listed at 2,500 pounds per acre. That was the data we entered. It's second in the level, and then our third one was 1,500 pounds per acre. You'll notice that the grazing wedge always puts the paddocks in descending order, starting with the one that has the most forage, and the ones that have the least forage. A lot of red in the grazing wedge means that you have a number of paddocks that either need to have hay made from them, or that you're not rotating often enough and allowing forage to accumulate to too high a level. too many of the yellow marks or yellow bars on the graph would indicate that you're overgrazing consistently. The report also provides to you every time that you enter data a little bit of an update about your farm based on the data you've entered. There's also a chart that's made or a grid that's made each week for your raw data. Some people like to use that. So that's basically how you both set up as well as start to use the grazing wedge. And if you have any questions, you can always look at the user guide that we have sitting on the website here that kind of goes through each of these things, as well as we also have a visual guide here. It has a PowerPoint style presentation that takes you again through the sort of the basics of what each of these things mean.